Welcome into the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. I'm Paul Catalina alongside JD Piquel. Thanks to Shorty's Pizza Shack, our sponsor. Shorty's at 12th and Bagby here in Waco. Fantastic game day location. Got to try out their pizza. Got to try out the wings with the Sikkim sauce. I'm telling you right now, JD, will change your life. But JD, it's the first week in the Big 12, actual games. Now look, for our realignment enthusiasts, we will have a segment where we will discuss it in a minute. Chalk talk later on about Spencer Rattler, some really interesting stuff there. But first, it's games. It's real. It's here. No more speculation. Let's talk about it between the white lines. I could not be more excited.
I could cry. I could legitimately cry that we were actually going to play the games, because for the last however many weeks, months, you name it, it's just been talking. Even if it's talking about football, which a lot of it hasn't, a lot of it's realignment talk, which is fine. We're finally going to see the product on the field, let the kids play. In a real year, too. A year ago, we're like, will we have a season? I hope so. And now it's here. It's more normalcy. I'm fired up. Pretty good slate, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the first one, Kansas and South Dakota on a Friday night. There's a good shot that South Dakota can win that game. Yeah. Kansas has had a lot of flux, but we'll see what happens. Again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time early in the year talking about Kansas. We'll see kind of how they develop. There's no reason to pile on.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of things to deal with at Kansas. So let's just skip that one. They play their first two games on Fridays. The second one is against Coastal Carolina, which is not going to go well.
Tough.
That's not going to go well for them. Coastal Carolina is good. Oklahoma and Tulane now is in Norman and not in Tulane. Doesn't make a difference, though. Spencer Rattler and that gang, this is a nice little tune-up for them. And hopefully it's a nice little break for the guys from Tulane after Hurricane Ida just rolled through South Louisiana, and the guys can maybe get their mind off of things a little bit.
Yeah, you would hope so, but at the same time, too, you're like, if I'm a Tulane football player and I'm away from home at a time like this, I mean, they're going to get rolled either way, which is the unfortunate truth of this game, but like you said, as it pertains to Oklahoma, they're going to run it up. Spencer Rattler should look like he's close to midseason form against a team like Tulane. So I want to see Oklahoma play a clean football game and win by the amount they're supposed to. But, yeah, I mean, you got to feel for Tulane a little bit here. You wonder if it's even a good idea to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to play, and they're going to get the gate like a home game. Oklahoma's done the great thing there. Hopefully, I'm sure they're going to be there longer this week than they normally would be, just because, there's no electricity in New Orleans right now, and that's really unfortunate. This is one of the more interesting games to me this week, just because this is going to be very physical, very ball-controlled. Kansas State, Stanford. This Chris Kleiman versus David Shaw. If you like the forward pass, this game is probably not completely for you. They're not going to ignore it completely, but these two teams are going to be built on running and defense, and it's not going to be one that the spread offense is going to be nowhere near this thing.
No, this will be like the Larry Zonka Bowl, if you will. You got Kansas State and Stanford, a really high testosterone game. Like if you like bruises, grunting, football, like this is going to be the exact right recipe for you. Also, nice that it's in Arlington. That's going to be kind of a cool setup, a virtual home game, I'm sure, for Kansas State. But Stanford's got alumni over the place, right? That'll be interesting to see how they travel for that game. But I think the difference to me in this game is Skylar Thompson. It's 6th year. He's played for what feels like forever. He's got to be first team all. Oh, my gosh, I didn't know they were still playing college football. But I'm excited to see him. I think he'll probably be the difference maker in this game. How much can he do with his legs? And even more so, someone's going to have to throw a pass at some point in this game. I think if that's what it comes down to, my money's on him.
Well, and look, Stanford, I don't really know as much. I mean, last year's most of the Pac-12 schools, there's no sample size last year.
Yeah.
There's nothing to really know. They didn't decide they're going to play till late in the year. They played 4 or 5 games max. It wasn't something that you'd be able to really say, oh, this team's going to be better, that team's going to be better. But an interesting game to me because of they're not like the offenses are different but the same. It's one of those things. West Virginia, Maryland. Maryland, I don't expect to be very good, although they do have Tua's brother, I guess, is the quarterback there. West Virginia, I think, is going to be a team that's going to be interesting to watch in the Big 12. We mentioned that a couple weeks ago. I think that'd be interesting. If Jarrett Dagey can take a step forward, maybe be like a bus driver plus, if he's got playmakers, if that defense doesn't suffer too much from their transfer losses, I think that they're going to be interesting. They're not going to win the Big 12, but I do think West Virginia is going to ruin somebody's shot at winning the Big 12.
Yeah, I like them to play spoiler at some point in the year. Even if Dagey's not bus driver plus, their defense is still going to be good. Even though they lost some guys, still going to have a solid defense, which will keep them in a lot of games. I'm really excited to see Tagovailoa, though, in this game. I think what he does running the football could potentially bring headaches for West Virginia. I mean, that's just hard to account for a mobile quarterback, especially first game of the season where you're still getting your feet under yourself as a defense. So, I like Maryland in this game. At home, I like Maryland, I think, to win this game, just because I don't know if I trust Jarrett Nagy as much yet. Now, he'd come out, light it up, and make me look like an idiot next time we do the show, and I hope he does for the sake of the Big 12. But bottom line, my money's probably on Maryland in this game.
All right, Iowa State, Northern Iowa. This is a game a couple years ago. Iowa State actually lost to Northern Iowa a few years ago. That's not going to happen here. This is going to be the first game of all 12 games this year of Iowa State showing how methodical and powerful and tough they are. Now, I don't know if they're going to win them all. Who knows? They probably won't. It's hard to do. It's hard for anybody to do. It's hard for Alabama to do. It's hard for Clemson to do. It's hard for everybody to win them all. But Iowa State's going to show this is not the Iowa State of a couple of years ago that's going to get scared by Northern Iowa.
Especially
or lose.
Yeah, dropping their opener a year ago to Louisiana.
Yeah.
And not to say Northern Iowa is Louisiana by any stretch of the imagination, but the simple fact is it's your opener. You got to play clean. You got to play mistake-free football. And I think one of the big things I'm going to be watching, how many carries do you get Breece Hall in an opening game where you really probably should have it at hand within the first quarter and a half, 2 quarters? So can they get him some good run, give him, let's say, somewhere around 10 carries, get him out of the ballgame, get your starters out of the ballgame by like that third quarter, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. You want to be generous with it, but I want to see Brock Purdy play efficient. I want to see him have a high completion percentage against a board. It's a glorified scrimmage in a lot of ways playing UNI, but so I want to see Breece Hall stay healthy, Brock Purdy play efficient, but I'm with you. They should run it up, which is, a lot of these teams should run it up in the Big 12, but especially Iowa State and Northern Iowa.
Yeah, I'm going to skip around here for a little bit because there's a couple games that we just need to clear right now. TCU and Duquesne.
Done.
Warm-up game. I mean,
See ya.
Yeah, I mean, it's a warm-up game for TCU. Want to see Max Duggan, though, take those steps and look like he's in control of the offense, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint. I know that that's probably not going to be too much of a challenge at Duquesne, but he's tended, like, when he makes mistakes early, getting his feelings a little bit. He's got to get out of his feelings.
Keep the jersey clean. Keep the jersey clean for all these quarterbacks playing Duquesne. We talked about it already, Northern Iowa, Tulane. That jersey better be nice and clean. Don't even wash it after the game. Have it ready for the next game. Keep your quarterback just essentially off the ground. I don't want to call any quarterback power from TCU. He'll have his chance during the season to run the ball a whole lot with him being the 1-2 punch of him and Zach Evans, but want to see him just play quarterback and play completely contact-free football.
Same thing, Oklahoma State and Missouri State. Want to see Spencer Sanders do some good things, come out of the game healthy. That's what I want to see from Oklahoma State. After that, shouldn't be much of a question mark there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, same deal. Stay healthy, stay clean, throw the ball well, complete the passes you should, and receivers, catch the balls you should. Especially in early games, everyone's kind of has the jitters. It's your first game day for a lot of these guys, their first game day in college. For Brennan Presley, it's his first game, probably being the guy at receiver for Oklahoma State, stepping into the shoes from Tylan Wallace, Dylan Stoner. The ball is now coming your way if you're Brennan Presley. So be effective, be efficient, and get out of the game.
Baylor and Texas State. This is an important game for Jake Spavital. I think he needs to show some things to his alumni and his and the administrators there. But I think Baylor ultimately will show that they do have too much. It's new offense, new quarterback. There's a lot of new on one side of the ball for Baylor. Offensive line, we've seen the depth chart. We know what it's going to be. But is it going to be effective? Like, is the depth chart what it is because absolutely that's the best and they have no questions? I doubt it. Or is that what they can do right now on the offensive line? And we'll see how that new offense, which we went over last week on the show, helps Gary Bohannon and helps the rest of the skill players and the offensive linemen maximize their potential.
Absolutely. And I'm interested to see, how much do you run Gary Bohannon in a game like this, where you probably should win? You probably have more talent than a Texas State. I think that's fair to assume. Can he just play quarterback in this game? And that's kind of what we said across a lot of these games, but especially with how much I believe Baylor wants to run Gary Bohannon the rest of the season, I want to make sure he's fresh, has as minimal amount of carries as possible. And then for Texas State, they're like transfer you. I'm pretty sure they took no high school kids a year ago. So how much does that present problems for Baylor having to look at an entire new roster on film? But going to be interesting to see. I think Baylor's only favored by 13 in this game, which you would think, in a game like this, probably give them a few more points, but Baylor probably didn't warrant too much more.
I think they're only favored by 13 because they didn't score 13 in many games last year. So that would be a lot. So people have to see it. People don't know about Baylor. All right, these are the two most interesting games to me this week. Texas Tech and Houston. Houston, a couple years ago, did this whole plot of redshirting people so that by now they would have this kind of veteran-laden team. I don't know if that's worked out for them because the one guy they did that for went to Miami anyway, and De'Aaron King. So I don't know if that's worked out for them, but I do expect Houston to win this game because I think they're better right now than Texas Tech is right now. Now, Tyler Shuck, that's going to be another thing you have to look at. But Matt Wells needs to establish an identity with this team in a hurry because Texas Tech is wandering in the wilderness right now. They don't know who they are. I like Matt Wells. I hope he does well there, but he's got to get them an identity in a hurry, or they're running the risk of just looking like a team that's gone nowhere, much like we saw from Nebraska and Illinois last week. The biggest problem with Scott Frost isn't that they're losing. It's that they're losing the same way every time. If Texas Tech continues to do that and loses the same way every time, then Matt Wells has made no difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it perfectly. A lot of pressure. Probably one of the most high-pressure openers outside of the Nebraska game that we're going to see this season. It's put up or shut up for Matt Wells. And same thing for Tyler Shuck. I mean, you were the guy at Oregon until you weren't, obviously. And so for him, he's kind of having his last chance too. So for both the coach and the quarterback, it's like, all right, we have to make something happen now. And I mean, if you can do it against a team like Houston, that'd be great. Obviously, Dana Holgorsen was hoping De'Aaron King would be playing quarterback for him right now and not whoever it is they have back there. So bottom line for Texas Tech, I think the pressure does make diamonds in this game. Again, maybe I'm putting the too much faith into Tyler Shuck and the fact that he has to make a play right now, but nothing more dangerous than a man with nothing to lose. And if you're Matt Wells and Tyler Shuck, I mean, you have legitimately nothing else to lose because this is your last shot. Maybe you have everything to lose. I don't know. Maybe it can go both ways, but.
Right, we'll see. We'll see. And the most intriguing game in the Big 12 this week, Texas versus Louisiana. These teams are ranked very close to each other beginning of the season, depending on which poll you look at. Billy Napier, beat Iowa State last year. And that was on special teams and defense. It wasn't because of some ornate offense. The reason I think I'm a little more nervous about Texas than I would have been already, and I mean, this is a trap game for Texas, for lack of a better term. This is a game they could very well lose. They may not be better than Louisiana is right at this moment. They might be better by the end of the season. They're not maybe that right now. They've got more talent, more highly recruited players, but they have a new coach who's installing a new system, and he's not been happy with either of the quarterbacks. Hudson Card's going to start. Casey Thompson's going to play. If I'm a Texas fan, I'm not happy with that. I want to hear, this is my guy. The other guy's going to play if this guy breaks his leg.
Yeah.
That's when the other guy's going to play. If you've got one, you've got one. If you've got two, you don't have one. That was the old coach saying I heard. Like, if you've got one, you've got one. If you've got two, you don't have any. I mean, so that's not like having two quarterbacks that are, equally, or like if you have to play two, it's usually not a good sign.
Yeah.
You can dilute yourself and think, oh, well, Casey Thompson's going to come in and change things up. Well, if you had a good quarterback to start out with, you wouldn't need to change anything up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's just one of those deals. Like, it's not, it's not that way most of the time.
Yeah, if we're scoring touchdowns, we're not changing things up if I'm Steve Sarkisian. I'm really curious to see, I guess, in this game for Texas, how much is the narrative in that locker room that this could be a trap game for them? Because it feels like everybody with a mic and a pencil is writing and saying, hey, big trap game for Texas and Louisiana. Like, we'll see what happens. Obviously, Billy Napier and the gang did a lot of great things a year ago, shocked Iowa State. So for Texas, you're like, do y'all know how good Louisiana is? Because if not, you're going to find out in a really rude way in a hurry. Does it matter how much that you have that burnt orange on? Like, how much weight do you think that really carries? Because guarantee Louisiana doesn't think it carries anyway. They're ready to go in and shock another Big 12 team. And so I 100% agree with you. Hudson Card, I think he probably fits his scheme a little more, having done the deep dive on it. Casey Thompson probably fits more for what Tom Herman wanted to run. And so how long does he stay around at Texas? I don't know. And how much is Steve Sarkisian say, hey, Casey, you're going to play? How much is that a play to say, we're going to keep you in the transfer portal? But bottom line, like you said, if you have two guys, you don't have one guy. And I would hope in this game we see one guy say, hey, I'm a gamer, take this job by the throat, and be the Texas starting quarterback. So a lot on the line for Texas. And if you want to win over boosters, win this game.
Well, and look, if you look at the two Big 12 schools that had the most prolonged quarterback battles, it's Baylor and Texas. The way that Steve Sarkisian has said it is that one guy's going to start and the other's going to get some opportunities. The way that Baylor has said it is Gary Bohannon is the starting quarterback. It's not Zeno's also going to play. This is Gary Bohannon's the starter, and he's going to, as long as he's healthy and effective, he's going to play.
Yeah.
So there's not any of this like, well, we have a package for Jacob Zeno or we have a package for Blake Shapen. This is a little bit different. So Not that I think one is better than the other, because I don't honestly, I have no idea. There's no way to know that yet, because none of these guys have played enough for us to know. But I do like what I heard from Dave Aranda more than what I heard from Steve Sarkisian. If I'm a fan of either of those schools, and that like they've made a decision, this is the guy at Baylor, and Hudson Card's gonna be the guy more than likely at Texas. But the fact that he hasn't wrapped his arms around it completely yet would make me a little nervous, especially early in the season.
Yeah, and that's not even Steve Sarkisian's style, really. So that would make you even more nervous. Like Steve Sarkisian's not a guy to do the Tebow package and have a guy come in on 3rd and short and run power, which Hudson Card could easily do anywhere else in the country and be a starting quarterback a lot of the places in the country. So the fact that he's hinting at having 2 guys, it's like, man, that's not your style. That's not you. We know that's not you. So you don't feel good about what you have at quarterback, bottom line.
Yeah, which means that, I mean, again, they're going to look for quarterbacks all the time, but Texas at quarterback has been, well, that's been their biggest problem. Garrett Gilbert didn't work out. And then from then on, it's been this roller coaster. Sam Ellinger is good. He was good. But he never got any better, and that's what Steve Sarkisian's job to do, is make Hudson Card and Casey Thompson better. He's not been there all that long, so it still would be silly to say that he has or he hasn't, but he's got to make them better, and we'll see what happens. And sometimes it's just about turning on the lights. Some guys, practice doesn't do well. J.J. Joe, who played at Baylor, well known for not being a good practice player, but when the lights came on, here we go. So you never know. Michael Vick wasn't great in practice early on, but are you going to, hold him out of the game because of that?
Better not.
Yeah, exactly.
You're losing from football games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frank Beamer, sometimes a coach knows, look, it doesn't look as good as it could in practice, but I know that it looks better than it will, and we'll see what happens when the lights come on and it counts. Some people can't just lock that in. So Hudson Card, I saw him play in the state championship game a few years ago. When they played against Allen. They lost that game, and he was the backup quarterback at that time. They lost that game, but he came in because the starter got hurt, and they lost, but he came in and looked pretty darn good when he came in right away when he was a sophomore. So
I'm intrigued to see how much does Sark simplify it for Hudson Card and Casey Thompson. I mean, the RPO offense as a whole, I know you're having to do a lot from a cerebral standpoint, but the throws they're asking them to make aren't going to be NFL-type throws. Just digest the defense quickly, get it out to your playmakers. And so a lot's going to fall on the shoulders of Bijan Robinson, Jordan Whittington. Those guys are going to get the ball in space, and they're going to say, okay, go win this game for us, because I don't know how much you're going to be able to ask your quarterback to do that.
The other question that Texas has is, beyond the 2 guys you just mentioned, who are the big playmakers? They don't know yet.
I don't know.
Don't know. Yeah, we don't know. So they're going to have to figure that out. When we come back, our obligatory realignment segment, which we'll have to do until this question is solved. I mean, I don't know any other way around it.
There's no way through it. We got to go around it.
We have to just do it. We have to do it. So we'll do that. There is some realignment news from last week that we'll get into. This is the big one, too, on 365 Sports, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th at Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice, or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com, or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by. Welcome back into the big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, JD Piquel, and JD, our obligatory realignment segment here on the big 1-2. Last week, some news that BYU would be one of the schools that they entertain for realignment. That there's also a realignment working group, Kirby Hocutt, Mac Rhodes, and others on that working on realignment, and that they will hear it. There's no real timetable on it, nor does there have to be. They need to do it right, figure out who they are. But just your thoughts on the Big 12 acknowledging that expansion, realignment, all that has, expansion is on the table. I'm sorry, it's not the realignment working group. It's the expansion working group.
Sure.
But BYU being a part of it, and that there is a working group now where they're saying, yes, we are working on the potential to expand.
Yeah, I think the whole reason as to why they now have an expansion group is a little bit of a bad optic for the Big 12. Like now the Pac-12 says, hey, bottom line, you just don't bring enough to us, so we're going to have to say no. Like the analogy I used on the hard count was when you ask a girl to prom and she says no, and you ask, you have the gall to ask her why, and she says, well, you're just not very good looking. And so the Pac-12 told the Big 12, hey, you're not that good looking. We don't want to add you. And so the Big 12 is now mustering their dignity and trying to go out shopping and find someone that does think they're good looking. And so for me, that just communicates, okay, the merger's probably not going to happen. If not with the Big 12, or excuse me, not with the Pac-12, the AAC feels like a less likely option out. They have a subgroup just to expand. And so for the BYU to the Big 12, I'd be stoked for that. I think that makes a lot of sense from a football merger standpoint.
I've gotten a lot of people sending me messages about this saying, because I think BYU, if you're going to expand, is the best possible option.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that they bring some problematic elements in that, one, they're not going to play on Sundays and in all the other sports, so that's going to be kind of a pain. But to me, it's kind of minor. And I also don't think – why I think the Pac-12 messed up before was, they were like, well, we don't want religious schools or we don't want schools with this. Like, look, man, you want schools that are going to help you make you money. And to get in the weeds with politics and ideologies. And look, there's many things that like religious schools you can probably get in the weeds about between actual religious schools. I could pick a fight between BYU and Notre Dame right now, but who thinks who's right. But in BYU's different. I mean, it's a different kind of a thing altogether. Everything's different. Like, believe me, go to Salt Lake City. It's a different kind of vibe in Salt Lake City. But this is not about any of that. This is about your football team playing these other football teams, and that's it.
Yeah.
So don't bring all that other stuff into it because it's completely pointless. Completely pointless. Just go play football and let people live their lives.
Just make it a football merger. Just keep the other sports where they're supposed to be. Bring football. We're not going to play on Sundays unless you play Labor Day weekend, and BYU's just not going to play on Labor Day weekend, which is fine. So the Big 12 can schedule around that. And for the Pac-12, it's like, dude, how many more life rafts do you think are going to come down your way that are going to be better than these 8 teams?
Yeah.
Like, probably not that many, especially if you want to add close to, let's say they want to get to 16. I don't think you have 4 teams coming down that river that are going to voluntarily, be down to just merge with you.
That's why they have the alliance, because this round of realignment, unlike the last one was about TV markets. Well, now that's kind of a different thing because of streaming and, did Rutgers and Maryland, for example, help the Big Ten really knock it out in the DMV and in New York City? No, they're not. Those are pro sports areas. They're not big college areas. And Rutgers, what are they good at? Again, Maryland, what are they good at? And they're not good at football. They're, nobody's talking about the Terrapins rolling through the Big Ten. So this round of realignment is about, okay, so the last was about TV markets. Well, now this one's about the actual TV programs. This is about, because there's so many things you can watch on television right now at any different time of the day.
It's great.
Yes, it's fantastic. We're peak TV.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to watch. Like, you get tired of watching sports, there's a superhero movie. You get tired of watching superhero movies, you can watch Peaky Blinders. You get tired of watching Peaky Blinders, you can watch Gossip Girl.
Great show,
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Peaky Blinders or Gossip Girl.
Haven't seen Gossip Girl.
Yeah,
that would be way funnier if I said Gossip Girl, but Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, I know. Really but I'm just saying, like, whatever you're into, you want to watch reality TV, there's tons of it. There's a channel for friggin' dogs now. It's $3.99 a month on DirecTV and maybe some other things, but it's called Dog TV. And it's just like stuff like you can leave the television on for your dog, so your dog doesn't feel alone in the house.
No kidding.
But yeah, man, I don't know if when I leave the house, some weird stuff goes on that the dogs, and then it flips over when I come back in. I don't know, but it's just Dog TV. There's TV for dogs, so there's everything. So how do you combat when there's a channel for literally everything you want? You need to have the best matchups possible. That's what this is about with Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. That means big brands playing each other almost every week in that conference. Very rarely in the SEC, in the new SEC, will they have a week where they're like, none of these games are good. Or none of these games are brand names. Even if it's Tennessee, who's been, in the middle of the pack at best since they won the national title in 1998, even them playing Oklahoma is a big deal. Those things are huge. So yeah, you're going to get a couple of, Vanderbilt's, versus Mississippi State's in there, but at the end of the day, that's a small price to play for Florida versus Oklahoma, or Bama versus Texas, all that's going to happen. So how do you do that if you're the other conferences? Well, you make an alliance, which is what they did, which means that you're going to have scheduling into the future where it's like, what are the good games in the Big Ten this week? Well, we had a couple of, Maryland and Rutgers, but we also have Ohio State's going to play USC, and Michigan's going to play Clemson, and Michigan State's going to play FSU, and so you got good games. Penn State's going to play Oregon. All those things are going to happen, so that's good for television. And if you're the Big 12, how do you make it good for television now? It's going to be difficult, but you got to find those things like BYU. I don't know if that's good for television, but I do know there's 2 schools in the country, maybe 4 if you count Army and Navy in this. Mm-hmm. But I guess Air Force kind of. They're not quite as popular as Army and Navy. But as far as I know that when Notre Dame is on and when BYU is on, I have people in all 50 states watching that game. Yeah. I don't know how many. I don't know how many Mormons there are in Maine, or how many Catholics there are in South Carolina. But I mean, there are the flagship school for their religion. Mm-hmm. Baylor maybe can make that argument too, I guess. I mean, not that they're getting good, but they're not quite that level as BYU or Notre Dame as for Catholicism and for the Mormon religion. They're the flagship school for that religion, for that group. So people are going to watch the BYU game, whether they went to BYU or their kids go to BYU or not. Most of those, they've got a lot of fans that just grew up because you root for BYU. I grew up Catholic. I know it. Half the people I know are somehow Notre Dame fans. They didn't go to Notre Dame. They're not going to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not really that big of a school. It's like 9,000 kids, maybe.
Yeah.
But when Notre Dame is on, you're watching the Irish.
Yeah. I mean, allegiance to your religion is, arguably for a lot of people, more of an allegiance than your alma mater. But I'm interested to see how much does this stick for the Pac-12? Because for the Pac-12, it was like we just shook hands. How much do you think that's going to hold when something sweeter comes along for these other 2 conferences? But yeah, then it leaves the Big 12.
For USC in particular, the Pac-12's one goal is to keep USC happy.
Right. So if
they don't have to worry about literally anybody else. They have to worry about USC. So if they can keep USC happy, then that's fine. If they can tell you USC, listen, you're going to have a great slate of non-conference games, people are going to watch, TV value is going to go up, we're going to give you more money, they're going to be happy with that.
Right.
If they cannot keep USC happy, then that's when USC is going to start going, well, that Big Ten doesn't seem too bad.
Right. So then the alliance is like, okay, well, we really just wanted USC.
Yeah.
We appreciate that y'all are a part of this, but we just shook hands. Remember, we shook hands about USC.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens there. But for the Big 12 and for the Pac-12, if you're the Big 12, who else do you add? You mentioned there's 50 states. BYU, right? But then you have 9.
BYU.
So you have to have an even number ideally.
What I like is I'm going for big alumni.
Right.
I want
UCF.
I want big schools. So UCF is a massive school.
Cincinnati.
I want UCF. I want
Marquette,
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Ohio's a growing state. So I want alumni, people who will, wherever they are around the country, tune in on streaming.
Yes.
It's not about the market, it's about the alumni and where they'll go on streaming.
100%.
So they're going to be excited about the conference and Cincinnati playing better games than I want Cincinnati. Yeah. I want Memphis. And here's the 4 teams I want are BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Memphis. And I want Memphis for this reason. Memphis as a market is not, it's 51st.
Sure.
So it's essentially a top 50 market.
Okay.
It could be 50th by a year from now,
well.
But it's close enough to a top 50 market. And FedEx has already said that if they get invited, they said it last time around, they'll sponsor the championship game. If I'm the Big 12, if a company like FedEx, who's never going to lose money ever, look, okay, financial people, I know they might lose money. I know something might happen, but the post office is a wreck now, so people go to FedEx and UPS.
I need to order stuff.
Yeah. So FedEx, look, FedEx is never going to lose money. They're just not. They're a well-run company that always has money. They have tons of money to spend on advertising, tons of money to spend on sponsorships. If I'm the Big 12, I might even start with Memphis.
Yeah.
I might just tell Memphis, you guys are in if you bring FedEx. You got FedEx, you're in.
Yeah.
I want their money.
And I'm good with that. I'm good with adding 2 to 3 AAC teams, but when the conversation becomes, let's merge with the AAC, it's
no,
dude, I don't want Eastern Carolina. And also, they would have been, somebody would have gotten them by now if that was going to bring you that much money to merge with the AAC. So, you're on sale for a reason.
Yeah. I want the big schools in that conference that can increase my alumni base because, again, is Baylor versus UCF or Texas Tech versus Cincinnati going to, raise the flags on any, it's not going to compare to anything you've got going on in some of these other things. But it's better than the alternative. And if you're talking about let's get into, big alumni bases, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, because TV markets aren't it. if you're not going to get the best matchups, if you're not going to have Oklahoma versus Florida and Bama versus Texas and all those things that you're going to see, then I want the most alumni that'll be excited about watching my games.
100%.
And so that's what I want. I'm not going to worry about academics unless the school is essentially a glorified high school, but those schools aren't. BYU is not, Memphis is not, Cincinnati's not, and UCF is certainly not. So they're not glorified high schools. They're not that. So let's do that. And then if you get past those 4, then I think about Houston, then I think about other things. But if you're talking about getting to 12, which I think is probably what you need to do to make it viable in the next TV contract, to make it worth that maybe near $20 million, because right now you're at 37, 38, almost 40 by the end of the contract. Well, that's going to go down to 9 or 10. You want it to be around 20 to 25 million. If you can get close to that, you can sustain what you're doing now. That's why I do that with those schools. Because they bring me that.
Yeah, you're essentially buying a stock, right, and hoping that they get better, they continue to grow, the brand continues to grow, on-field product continues to grow. And so I feel good about all 3 of those schools you mentioned, especially UCF. Like UCF, to me, in a lot of ways, could trend a lot like a TCU trended when they came from the Mountain West, won the Rose Bowl, beat Wisconsin or whatever it was. I think it was Wisconsin they beat, and then became a much more relevant Power 5 team. Like they were in the playoff conversation not too long ago. And so, I mean, all 3 of those teams fit that bill in one way or another, having played for a New Year's Six Bowl in the last couple of years.
Well, and look, with UCF, that's the largest student body in the country now. Yeah. So again, like those schools are not going to get smaller. No. Like that's the thing. I don't want schools that like all of a sudden get smaller or not going to grow very exponentially. You already have that. You already have TCU and Baylor. Those schools aren't going to get very much bigger. I want schools that can grow. And again, TCU and Baylor's goal is not to get that much bigger. Yeah. They want to grow, but at their pace. Yeah. As where those schools like Memphis and Cincinnati can continue to like really get big. So that's what I want. BYU, they make new Mormons every single day. They make new ones. It's a factor. It's a fact. Like I grew up Catholic. They make more of us every single day. They grow up and you're Catholic and you know it. So it's the same for BYU. It's the same. So I would absolutely want to get a handle on that emerging population that's going to be a fan of a school in the league.
Yeah, 1,000%. And if it's not those schools, I mean, where like you said Houston maybe, but
Houston would be my 5th choice out of it.
And then you kind of get into the weeds more and more. So I think that's
Houston,
probably
Boise State, all these things. Yeah, I mean it's just so after those 4, again it gets
murky.
The list goes down, and I can give you more for all include the 8 schools that are left in the Big 12, and any school you want to add. I can give you more reasons not to add anybody than to add them.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they're still for sale. There's a reason why you haven't been added yet. So everybody and we're not anti-AAC. I think that's been kind of the feedback that I've gotten at least a lot in the comment section, which is fine. But I mean,
we're pro-reality.
Pro-reality, pro-AAC.
Yeah, we're pro-AAC. I'm pro-everybody. I'm pro-everybody, every conference, except for Texas and Florida. I'm pro-everybody. I want everybody to do well. But you have to live in reality of where this is not why it's happening. And also, there's no conspiracy against your school. No. It's just this is and sometimes maybe people's perception is wrong. Maybe people's perception of UCF has been wrong all this time. Yeah. But that's why I'm for expansion in the Big 12. Let's give them a chance to prove that that's wrong. Yeah. Let's try. Keeping people down for the sole purpose of you don't do anything for me right now, or you weren't good in 1987, that's dumb. Yeah. Let's live in the now. It's 2021. All right, the obligatory realignment segment has thus ended. And we'll probably, I don't know, hopefully we'll do it less. Because but you never know.
Talk about, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. But I mean, that's the most, of the 3 segments of the show this week, the most comments are going to be about this. Sure. Not about our picks and who we liked in the first segment. Yeah. And definitely not about Chalk Talk and Spencer Rattler, who is, it's going to be fun to watch. Believe me, you guys want to see this stuff from Spencer Rattler and how he's grown as a quarterback in the next segment with JD's Chalk Talk. This is the big one, too, on 365 Sports, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack. Chalk Talk is up next. Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry, BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Welcome back into the big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina alongside JD Piquel. We're brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Look, if you're coming into Waco for game day, not many better places to go on game day than Shorty's Pizza Shack. Great deals on slices, great deals on beer, great deals on, look, Boone's Farm. They have Boone's Farm there, which I've done before, JD. More than I'd like to admit.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've had Boone's Farm and pizza.
There's no shame in that.
No, there's not. I mean, like,
not
even at 41 years old, there's no shame in it.
There shouldn't be.
I'll do it again. I will do it again.
You should. I want to do it with you.
Let's do it.
I want to do it. It's a date.
That's
We're
right.
doing it.
Yeah.
It's on camera.
Game day. Shorty's Pizza Shack. We're going to do that. All right, it's time for Chalk Talk and our subject this week, Spencer Rattler. Overwhelmingly by many services, the number one ranked player in the country coming into this season, JD. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to see why, but you know, my thoughts on him were he has to mature as a human being more than he really does as a quarterback. Lincoln Riley can do a lot with a quarterback thing, and I'm sure a lot with a human being thing, just growing up as a kid. But last year we saw some ebbs and flows until the end of the season, and then he became a really amazing player.
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. We need to see Spencer Rattler take that next step as a leader and take the next step as a quarterback. There were times earlier in the year where you're like, what are you doing? You're trying to do too much. And we saw that time and time again until the Texas game. We said, hey, come talk to me. Come sit down on the bench right next to me. We'll talk about it. Worlds better from a turnover standpoint for Spencer Rattler. And this is early in the year. We see it here against Iowa State. You got 2 timeouts. You're down by a score. You got a whole minute left on the clock. Spencer, you don't need to do too much, my guy. We don't need to get it all in one play. A touchdown ties the game. So here, take care of the football. We see it here. Spread offense, spread formation. You got 4 wide. Takes a snap. Looking deep, he's looking deep. All right, pause right there. You got 2 guys, Spence. 2 guys. I mean, just check it down. Make the easy throw. Make the easy play. Get your team a first down and just don't turn the ball over again. 2 timeouts, only down by 7. Just trying to do too much. And so if he can take the next step and just be patient within the scheme, he can just be patient, make his reads, take what the defense gives him, realize he doesn't have to be Superman for this offense to be successful. They could be really dangerous. So we see that here. Pick, ends the game, boom, you're down. This is some good Spencer Rattler. Right here, we see man coverage, and he reads it right off the bat. Depth eyes leverage, he sees their eyes are on their man. So we're tied up here, meaning they're not worried about anything else. They're just sitting on their receiver, worried about the receiver, that's it. And Spencer Rattler, that's why he's number one ranked player in the country. He's got the arm talent that you just can't teach. So straight up, takes that drop, stride for stride. So he throws a back shoulder pass right here. The receiver does a great job, runs his seam route to give him a lot of space on the sideline. He's trailing. Again, he's in man, so he's not looking back at the quarterback. He's just worried about Charleston Rambo and Spencer Rattler. Back shoulder dime piece. Got him, coach. Strike at the band. And that was, I mean, let's face it, that was a massacre across the board. Mm-hmm. Again, a Florida team that was down however many starters, but still, to make a play like that against a defense, still an SEC caliber defense. Yeah.
And look, and you may talk about this here in a few minutes. Some of the things about Spencer Rattler are, like the 2 throws you saw, his footwork's not great on either one of them. Mm-hmm. He threw off his back foot in that long one he threw the interception. He didn't really set his feet all that well in that throw. I think some of the problems with the guys who are supremely athletically talented, they don't have to do all the things that that everyone else has to do to make the same throw. You know, a normal human being has to set his feet and look this way and square his shoulders and throw it just that way. Well, Spencer Rattler, God gave him a thunderbolt, and he can just go, bop, and it goes 40 yards.
Oh, 100%.
So teaching him to do those other things and it'll go 60 yards is really scary, but it's also really hard because when you have so much God-given ability, I mean, how are you supposed to teach the guy to rein that in?
Absolutely. And it's tough because you don't want to coach it out of him. And especially right now, the trend is awkward arm angles, awkward platforms. And so he's seeing that on NFL Sundays and like, hey, I can do that. Like you said, flick of the wrist and it goes right to his man 30, 40 yards downfield. But definitely something to where if he can take that next step fundamentally as well, it's going to be an absolute force, especially with his athletic ability. And we see that again here as well. So we'll break this down right here. This is the same play. Boom. Dime piece. Gotcha. Again, strike up the band. Big play. Now we're going back to some of the mistakes here. This is bad Spencer Sanders. Excuse me. Bad Spencer Rattler. Spencer Sanders, whole other topic. We'll get into that, I'm sure, later in the season. Hopefully good Spencer Sanders. So right here, he's got 3rd and 9, and he's got bunch formation on this side. So you got TJ Pledger down here, 3 other receivers right here. And again, if there's nothing wrong with punting, Paul. There's nothing wrong with punting. There's nothing wrong with tucking and running. He's a great athlete. He could probably pick it up by himself, but he gets greedy. He gets locked on this one receiver right here. And Texas has their linebacker. He's dropped down at the beginning as a D lineman, drops back during the play, and just Spencer Rattler just doesn't see it at all. And I think some of that could be due to his maturation process at this point in time. He's not a very mature quarterback right here, and you see him make a mistake, throw it right to DeMarvion Overshown, reads it, easy. Not even a hard catch for my guy. And that was a tough one. At this point, you kind of felt like maybe Lincoln Riley's blood's boiling just a little bit, getting a little bit frustrated with his young quarterback, and just a turnover he didn't need to have. I mean, you saw there were guys open at the bottom of the screen there. There was guys that were wide open, and he just kind of takes that throw because he decided pre-snap, hey, I'm going to this slant because that's what I know. That's what I feel comfortable throwing. That's what I know is going to pick up 3rd and 9. And so the last mistake we have for Spencer Sanders here, again, just tries to do too much with the football. Again, another 3rd down, 3rd and 5. So he's thinking, I mean, in high school, Spencer Rattler, I guarantee you, converted most 3rd and 5s because he felt like it. Probably didn't end up in 3rd and 5 too often anyway. But you see right here, just tries to do too much. So watch right here. He's going to go to a check down. He's going to go deep. He's going to go ahead and run this curl. He wants to go deep. You watch his eyes. He wants to throw deep to my guy and make a big play, score a touchdown, strike up the band. My man sits right here. He's probably the second option. This guy is open right away. He should feel the pressure and get rid of it. Just check it down. Live to play another play. He's a good athlete. He can get you a first down. But Spencer Rattler scrambles, shakes it off, ends up costly turnover right here. Throw it to him. You're telling me he can't have a chance to pick up a first down? Like you're hurting your team by not making the easy play. And we saw him make the easy play more and more as the season wore on. Goes Pirates of the Caribbean mode here. Bad ball security. And this was kind of the final straw for Lincoln Riley. After that play, he said, hey, come sit next to me. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to make sure you don't do that going forward. After that play, world's better quarterback.
Yeah, and another thing you have to teach elite athletes to do, especially, is that, like, hey, you're at Oklahoma. You're not the only great player here. Mm-hmm. Like, let the other guys do some stuff. You know, it's fine to let them do it. It's hard sometimes, I think, especially if somebody like Spencer Rattler was on a reality show because he was such a good high school quarterback. Like, in his mind, he can do it, and that's fine. He's right most of the time, but in the Big 12, in major college football, most of the time is not what you want. Mm-hmm. You want all of the time.
Yeah, and he's been it. Yeah. He's been it since he was in high school. He was the number 1 ranked quarterback coming out, number 1 ranked quarterback obviously going into the season, number 1 ranked player going into the season. Even when during his redshirt freshman year, people were saying he was going to have a chance to win the Heisman. Guys before had done it. Baker, Kyler, Jalen Hurts was in the finalist for it. So he's been told time and time and again, hey, you're it. You're Superman. You can do it all on your own. If he can take that next step, play within the scheme, play to his strengths as opposed to trying to make it all happen at once, Oklahoma's going to be dangerous. And I think you said on one of the first shows, they're not going to lose a lot, Paul. They are not going to lose a lot of games this season. So one other thing about his game that you got to love, and this is something that I think just makes him a headache for defenses all of the time, his athletic ability. Right here you see it. TJ Pledger motions out, so that tips him off, hey, we're in a man scheme. I got man across the board. I can shake and bake a little bit. So he's going to come out with him. We'll see it here. Boom. Again, look at the eyes. He's locked on. That's man. He's locked on. That's man. He's locked on over here. That's man. Rose is over there. You can't really see him, but he sees it early, and I'm really glad he did this because The temptation here is to force it in that window, force it in completion, force it in up here, probably as interception. Spencer Rattler's patient, and he goes, oh, I forgot, I'm really athletic. Boom, up in the air, touchdown. And again, that was still early in the season where he's trying to take what the defense gives him, but his athletic ability can be an equalizer for a lot of mistakes that he is still trying to grow into.
Well, look, I don't want my quarterback running all that much.
Yeah.
I'm not a person who's like, unless that's what he does. Unless he's Tommy Frazier, that's not what I want. If you're running the old option, then sure. I want my quarterback running when it's going to hurt the other team the most, or when it's just the last thing you can do. I like the thing about Charlie Brewer that I think people will never understand is how annoying he was on 3rd and 8. Like, look, 3rd and 8. Okay, you've covered everybody. He's got limited arm talent. Well, he'll just run for it if you drop back. He's probably not going to run for 50, but all he needed was 9. So now he's got 8 or 9. And that's the kind of thing I want from a quarterback. That's the kind of thing that Spencer Rattler can do. You're not going to see him probably rattle off a lot of 50s. He could probably do it, but you're not going to see that too much from him.
1,000%. I love that Oklahoma, they don't ask him to do a lot running the ball. Like, he can improvise during the play. When the play breaks down like it does here, he can beat you, like you said, 3rd and 8, but they're not calling quarterback power. They're not calling quarterback wide zone like we might see Baylor do this year. But no, when he improvises, he's special. He can make up for a lot of the things that the defense asked him to do. Right here, this was when you're like, okay, he's pretty special. Like, you understand, okay, the game is starting to slow down for him, and he's just a specimen when it comes to what he has physically. So right here, kind of a similar play. Gets caught in a corner blitz. Call that a cat blitz. So he's coming hot off the edge. They're still trying to sell this fake. They're trying to, I guess, essentially put him in a bind and make him go for that fake. He doesn't bite at all. He's like, nah, I've watched film. I know that y'all are dropping back and passing. So he's coming in hot, Spencer Rattler. Boom. Everywhere else in America, they call that a sack. Spencer Rattler, spin cycle, circle button, get off me, keeps his eyes downfield to his credit, and then just uses his athletic ability to get out. Like you said, he's got some wheels. He's not going to all the time go for 30 or 40. Does a good job, runs out of bounds. Athletic ability, the great equalizer for Spencer Rattler. This, to me, was also really impressive because they're spying him. And when you're spying, for those at home that don't know, a spy is essentially the defense saying, okay, we have one guy who's going to be responsible for the quarterback. The NFL defenses try to do it all the time to Michael Vick. Never worked. I'm not saying Spencer Rattler's Michael Vick, but sort of the same story here. Spencer Rattler takes the drop. He realizes right here, okay, I have no pass coverage responsibility. Spencer Rattler's out of the pocket, which is his cue to, okay, sick him, go ahead and get after him. And Spencer Rattler makes him miss and gets out in the open. That's an SEC linebacker he just made miss in the open field. Scrambles upfield, big first down, and obviously you see it here. Insult to injury. I love this right here. I mean, you said it. He's kind of towing that line between, are you competitive or are you just kind of a jerk? If he can channel that into right here, like, hey, I'm down for my teammate, I ride for my guys, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little trash right here as long as there's no penalty. Gotta love that. Gotta love that. We'll finish up here with some of his touch passes. He's got a lot of touch. Like you said, so much arm talent from the guy. He has so much just natural ability that you can't teach. You see it right here. Corner route coming underneath. My man Theo Weiss coming out right here. Boom. High arm angle. If he leaves that short, that's an interception. He's got him trailing. You cannot afford to throw that short. Not only does he not throw it short, puts a nice angle on it, drops it in the bucket. First down, Sooners. Again, same thing, you mentioned it. He throws off of awkward platforms when he doesn't always have to. Right here, it does him a service. He's able to throw out of an awkward platform. He's able to use that arm talent. And again, you see it. He diagnoses it really quick. He's watched film during the week. Again, depth, eyes, leverage is your keys when you're talking about man coverage. So you see the depth, they're at about a yard and a half, so he's not bailing out. Eyes, we're looking right at our guy right here. We're not worried about anything behind us, anything around going over here. We're not worried about run. We're worried about our man right here, man coverage. Diagnoses it very quickly. He sees it. Hey, buddy's in man. I got one guy to throw against. A little bit of heat and throws off the, like he's not even stepping into that throw. He's fading back, just like you mentioned, Paul. Puts it right on the numbers, back shoulder. That's an NFL kind of throw right there. Oh, we're rolling too quick with the Cowboy. I want to hear what you thought about that back shoulder pass, and he's dropping.
Again, just think about how good he's going to be when he doesn't do that. I mean, he can do it, and that's one of the things that's scary, because sometimes you got this guy dead to right, and he can throw the ball almost as well without putting any of his feet into it, just from his arm and wrist, just right there. So that's what makes him super scary. That's why he's probably the Heisman front runner right now, that and the fact that he's a Lincoln Riley quarterback. He's got pretty good percentage on those guys. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's scary, and I think once he also just learns to do it the right way, he's going to be even scarier, because that means that those accidental throws he makes sometimes aren't going to happen as much.
100%. He's going to be able to settle into the offense, play his game, and not only play his game, play to the strengths of his game, as opposed to having to be Superman and do it all by himself. Last play here, enormous game. New Year's 6, 0-0. It's opening up. First drive of the game. Florida's talked a lot of smack all week long. Emotions are high. Catches them here. We'll see if we can rewind a little bit here. Florida catches him here. He's saying, hey, who's got this guy? You have this guy. Get down there. And Spencer Rattler does a great job here. Doesn't panic. Takes a nice drop. Steps into contact and throws a great ball right here. But one thing that I'm encouraged by, he didn't freak out. In a big game like this, emotions are high. It's your first big bowl game. Like, there's a tendency to freak out and overthrow this. But he does a great job. Drops it right in the bucket. It hits Marvin Moon for a touchdown. I love it, though. Steps into contact. Boom. He's coming free. Tell you what, right here, he knows he's taking a shot in the ribs. That hurts a lot. I mean, I played a little bit of quarterback, not a lot of quarterback, but enough to know this doesn't feel good. And so for him to step into that and deliver a dime piece, that's one of those throws that makes you say, hey, that's my quarterback right there. Terrell and style, that's my quarterback. So all that's to say, love what Spencer Rattler brings to the table. If he can take that next step, I don't see a situation where they don't end up in the college football playoff, Big 12 champs.
By the way, JD, if you bring highlights where Florida's losing, we're going to get along really, really well for the rest of our existence. But, yeah, Spencer Rattler, fantastic player, fantastic talent, and only scratching the surface, just a little bit so far. All right, that's going to do it for us. This is the Big 1-2. I'm Paul Catalina. He's JD Piquel. Thanks to Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Find out more, shortyspizzashack.com. Thanks to Armstrong Sims and Jack McKenzie. We're back again with a new episode next week. Enjoy the first week, everybody.